Hey, Vinyl community, this is going to be part two. As it turns out, we had a little technical issue. Logan is back and I am here. And this is going to be part two of our Sophistipop top 10 episode. Logan, you had just given your number 7. You want to refresh our memory what your number 7 was. I don't know if you got to finish your thought before my internet.
No, you're good. Actually, I had not even said what my number 7 was, so we are in the clear. But it is. I want to make sure some of these records, I get this bad habit of I listen to records and I don't. I have this nice little like kind of interchangeable record frames. I put it in there. I listen to it. I enjoy it, but like I don't know like the names of songs half the times, the names of the records because this is just my ritual. But the album is called Seduced and Abandoned by Hue and Cry. Where's the yeah, there you go. We'll just show on the hype sticker. Hue and Cry. I don't know too much about either of these gentlemen, but they are, other than they are a late 80s, early 90s most prominent Sophistipop duo. These guys really get into the soul thing, especially the few records after this. It is very smooth, very laid back, soulful type of record. But this is definitely falls into that, new romantic Sophistipop lane. I Refuse, Strength to Strength, Labor of Love are the 3 singles. Labor of Love is just this fucking barn burner groover track, man. It is another really quirky music video, just like super catchy, spitfire lyrics, and is, man, you talk about jazzy. The horn section in Labor of Love is unbelievable. And this whole record is just full of that big late 80s reverbed out, almost annoyingly reverbed out Sophistipop bombast, and is really, really good. And a late discovery for me in this genre, but a very quick love at my number 7 spot.
Very cool. Another band that I have not heard of that I'll have to do some exploring on. So very good. My number 7 pick is one that I did share for your episode that you had made reference to earlier, and that is Curiosity Killed the Cat. The first track I had heard on here was the only single, well, not the only single, but the only single that I had heard off of this track, and that was Misfit, which is the lead-off track on here, which is kind of more of a synth pop kind of a feel to it. But the rest of this album is very much, if you like Simply Red or if you like Sade, it's like a British blue-eyed soul masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. I have loved this album since 1988 when it came out, and it still, for me, sounds as fresh today as it did then. I never get tired of it. I do listen to this album quite a bit during the year. I like it that much. It's fabulous. They look like a boy band on the cover, but don't be deceived. Definitely like a jazzy, soul inflected kind of music here, and it really is great. Down to Earth is a great track. Know What You Know is fantastic. Ordinary Day, sounds almost a little bit like ABC a bit, but it's a great album from start to finish.
Yeah, I would love to find those 2 records on vinyl. I've maybe seen a 12-inch single theirs around, but yeah, never the full lengths. And yeah, super good band.
Yeah, they only had 2 albums. I believe they folded after their second one, but I would, just to show you how much I like this band, I actually have a single.
Nice.
That's how geeky I am about this particular album. This is Down to Earth.
Hell yeah.
Probably their second single, but I have the album I just showed you. I have it on cassette. I have it on CD. I have it on vinyl. And not because I wanted it in every format, but originally I owned it on cassette. Then I upgraded to CD, and then eventually, miraculously, I did find it on vinyl. So, anyway,
nice.
Yeah.
Number 6. This is a band that I don't think people would immediately consider for the style, but I think to me it absolutely is. They kind of garnered this new appreciation for more alternative and indie music listeners with their later projects. But for me, my favorite albums by bands more often than not tend to be kind of transitional records, where you can tell they're moving from one sound into their next. And this is a prime example of a transitional record. My number 6 is Talk Talk with The Color of Spring. Folks who know Talk Talk know every record is gorgeous. And this one to me is kind of the most gorgeous for me. Life's What You Make It is the big single off of here. Although Give It Up is my favorite track. That is just a real punchy ballad of Mark Hollis, rest in peace. What an incredible voice, what an incredible songwriter. I believe Chameleon Day might have been a single off of this as well. And not the record that gets the most accolades. The people who like 80s music really love the first 2 albums. The people who like alternative music really love the last 2 albums. And I love the catalog, but yeah, for me, when they kind of hit this really sweet spot in between those 2 styles, you can hear them about to graduate to this, unbelievable sonic force of a band, but still contains some of their more 80s traditional pop elements on this record. It is just super duper strong at my number 6 pick.
Yeah, this is I've got this as their last album, I think, Laughingstock. And by this point, they were so totally into sonic experimentation. They sound nothing like they did on their first couple albums. And I mean that in a good way, because they were adventurous, almost in a way that Radiohead was, where, Radiohead's first 2 albums sound nothing like what they would eventually become. And I think that shows just that this was a band that was willing to evolve, and hopefully their audience stayed with them. But there are some really loyal, hardcore Talk fans, because this music is gorgeous. But, there's only 6 tracks. It's a full album, but there's only 6 tracks on here. But it's almost like avant-garde jazz a little bit on here. But Color of Spring is just a great, great Sophistipop album before they kind of started moving a little bit farther out there.
And I would guarantee Radiohead cites Talk Talk as influence on those last 2 records. Absolutely.
That's got Happiness Is Easy on it, right?
Yes, yeah, opening track. I
love that song
off the top of my head, but yeah.
That's worth owning that album just for Happiness Is Easy. Love that track.
Every song, man, it's a tight. Talk Talk always had tight listens. Yeah, I think the last 2 records are 6 tracks a piece. This is 8 tracks. I think the other 2 might only be 8 or 9. Like, they really did what they did extremely well and moved on to the next record. Yeah, real solid.
Yup. All right. My number 6 is going to be, and this is a band that really was kind of new wave-ish in a way. Elvis Costello and Joe Jackson at one time were very much kind of that early new wave sound. And then this is, I think, their most mature album. I'm talking about Squeeze, East Side Story. They picked up Paul Carrick for this album. He's only on one other Squeeze album after this, but just everything that's great about Sophistipop, Blue Eyed Soul is on here. Difford and Tilbrook were such a great songwriting partnership, but the song Tempted is probably the one that people would recognize off of here. But every song on here sounds different from the next. You got No Tomorrow, which is just a real dreamy, kind of ethereal sort of track. You got In Quintessence, which is just kind of a frenetic, new wave poppy kind of a track. Like I said, you got Tempted, Someone Else's Heart, so many different songs, different styles of music on here. And this, I think, is my favorite Squeeze album, I believe. But Squeeze has a lot of great albums, but I feel like they were firing on all cylinders with this one, and it's really a lot to recommend off of here.
Yeah, it was hard for me not to pick some from Squeeze Camp. Squeeze is actually a band that, I've loved, everybody that you mentioned related artist wise for years, and Squeeze for no reason just didn't hit for me a couple of years ago, and I fell in love quick. But yeah, Paul Carrick's first solo record, I have the name escapes me, but that was up for my list for sure. And I love Argy Bargy, and I love I love all Squeeze stuff for sure. And it just nothing. You can only pick 10.
Yeah.
All right, top 5. I know this will be on your list. I'm curious to see where it ranks. So I will not spend too much time on it. But my number 5 is simply Red Picture Book. This is, as you know, and most people, I think this is actually, people respect this record, but I think this is a band that definitely gets kind of used as a punchline when it comes to this subgenre. But what a amazing record this is. This is smooth. This is soulful. This is big, huge, passionate pop music. Between Holding Back the Years, Money's Too Tight to Mention, big singles, to covering Talking Heads on this with Heaven, to the song Jericho, which is one of the most mind-blowingly produced songs of this style, and so good that there are 2 version. The album version differs slightly from the single version. Single version is a little bit faster. It's a little bit more aggressive. And both are just top hitters, man. I think if this record has been in my life just a little bit longer, it might rank a little bit higher, but it's absolutely top 5 territory for me. And I love everything I've heard by this band. I have the first 3 albums, and they are all fantastic, but this one is really incredible.
You got an outfit right off the Joe Boxer's cover.
Yeah, right.
Well, Logan, you're not going to believe this, but guess what my number 5 was?
There you go.
So yeah, I'm glad we get to talk about this without having, a couple albums in between. But no, I used to be a wedding DJ about 10 years ago. And there are so many, there's a genre also called smooth jazz, which I think you could also characterize some of this music as smooth jazz, but Sad Old Red is so great. It just starts out with that bass, it's totally a jazz track. You got some brass on there. It is such a great track to play during cocktail hour if you're ever at a party. Jericho, like you mentioned, is a great track. Heaven is a Talking Heads cover from Fear of Music, but they do it so well. Money's Too Tight to Mention, Little Blue-Eyed Soul there. Holding Back the Years, one of the greatest songs of all time. Yeah, every single track on here is money, and can't go wrong with that. Their debut, excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I expected it to be high, but maybe I don't know shit. All right, number 4. You mentioned this artist in one of your other picks, but yeah, I think out of everything I have here, no, this is probably the record that's been in my life and my spins of this genre the second most out of what I have, and that is, again, one of the best debut records of the 80s and of this style. ABC, Lexicon of Love, another great concept record as well. And they even, followed up decades later, a few years ago, with Lexicon of Love 2, and it's not bad. The main cat from this band, who was it, Martin Fry? Is that the guy? He kind of put together Lexicon of Love 2, and it's worthy. It's a worthy companion record. But this, man, oh my God. Poison Arrow was the first song I loved off of this. I used to, my dad had this unreal CD collection, and he had some compilations called Living in Oblivion that chronicled like all these type of different 80s bands. And Poison Arrow was on one of those comps, and I just would listen to it constantly. But yeah, Poison Arrow, Tears Are Not Enough, The Look of Love, those are the singles off of this, but all the ABC stuff is great, man. They had knockout singles their entire career. They had knockout albums their entire career. But they have some of the best 12-inch mixes in the game. Some of them are streamable. I don't know if all of them are, but yeah, a really, really killer romantic new wave record in my number 4 spot.
Well, and that again, you know, the 80s for me, I mean, it's got something to do with the fact that that was when I was in junior high and high school. But, you know, the songs that were on the radio back then could only ever have existed on the radio during that period of time. You're never going to hear a song like Poison Arrow on the radio now, or a song like, you know, The Look of Love, or, you know, anything off that album. But that is a fantastic record. And, you know, How to Be a Zillionaire, I think, was a follow-up to that record, which is also very good. But ABC just exemplified that, you know, we're wearing suits and we're going to look very dapper in our videos. And they just had such a very high-class look about them, which, you know, I don't know if they copied other bands or other band copies them, but there was just so much of that on MTV at the time. It just looked so classy, but it sounded amazing as well.
I think they definitely sparked. I mean, this is 82. When you think about this genre of music, it's usually something associated with, you know, maybe like 85 to like, you know, that last chunk of the 80s. So I would have to imagine that this was a pretty, you know, without being there, a pretty influential record for, you know, for this style.
Mm-hmm. No question. My number 4, this is another one of these albums where I listen to this regularly and people are going to scratch their head thinking, what in the hell? I can't imagine why. You know, I'm a huge fan of Thomas Dolby's first album. And people think, oh, you mean the one that's got She Blinded Me with Science on? That's all they know him for. But I am in love with that one also, The Golden Age of Wireless. And I love this album also. And it's by a band that maybe people have forgotten about, especially if you didn't grow up in the 80s. Probably you have no idea this band that I'm talking about, but Level 42, I think this might have been, was this a record on that episode that I did for your contest?
Yeah, it's a band that I have known by. There are some dollar bin pop bands that, you know, when I first got into record collecting, I was like, I don't need that in my collection, or I don't need that in my collection. Level 42 is one of them, and I've got my eye on that, and I've got my eye on Glass Tiger. at some point to bring into my collection.
Yeah, well, I first saw the video. My first exposure was when I saw the video for Something About You. And I thought, this is so cool. It's such a great sound. I mean, it's pop music. It's kind of synth pop music, but it's also very soulful. And the rest of the album is that way. And this, you know, unfortunately, the record companies did this a lot with UK imports, is they would take a UK album, they would chop it up, they'd pull in songs from the previous album, you know, they'd make a mix.
Yeah.
Similar to the Thomas Dolby album, where the British version of this, and you would think they stopped doing that back when the Beatles and Rolling Stones and, you know, the Who, you would think they'd put a stop to that practice, but they were still doing it in the 80s, and they chopped up essentially the British version of World Machine looks very different from the American version, the North American version. But having heard the British version, I kind of understand why, because I feel the American version is more enjoyable and more mature to listen to than the UK counterpart. But yeah, it's very, you know, you could almost classify some of this as smooth jazz, but it's very soulful, very much R&B, but with a more kind of updated synthy kind of a sound. And I, you know, I like this. I like their follow-up, Running in the Family was great. And then they just kind of dropped off the map. I think they put out like 2 more albums, maybe. They're still together today, but they don't really put out much music at all anymore. I think they had 3 or 4 albums prior to this one, but
sure,
it's always been my favorite.
Okay, top 3. These are some fucking real heavy hitter records for me. And and yeah, this one is kind of the last one of like stuff I discovered really, really late, but actually has a connection to our last video. This is a band called Deacon Blue, who are absolutely named for the Steely Dan track Deacon Blues. They are a Scottish pop group, and this is their debut album, Raintown. This is a concept record as well, kind of about, you know, a rainy town in the middle of Scotland and the locals that inhabit it. But oh my God, this record blew me the fuck away the first time I heard it, and I could not believe that I had not heard it before. You know, it kind of existed in this realm of bands like China Crisis and bands that I would just see around, but for whatever reason, like never made it into my listening rotation. And now that I've crossed Deacon Blue off, China Crisis will probably be the next one. But this record, man, is just, again, it is so soulful. It is so powerful. It is so bombastic. There are, I mean, this is one of those records that every song almost feels like a single to me. Dignity is the really, really big hit off of here. What's the other one they kind of pedal on here? Loaded and When Will You Make My Telephone Ring, all great songs. Chocolate Girl is the absolute standout for me for this record, which was one of the singles. That is a perfect pop song. But the title track, He Looks Like Spencer Tracy Now, Town to Be Blamed. I mean, oh my God, this record just chills me to my core. It is, it's moody. It is, it's big. It is smooth. It is absolutely sophisticated, and yeah, just I cannot speak highly enough about this. This was one of the absolute best albums I discovered in 2020, and now it is my third favorite Sophistipop album of all time.
Wow, high praise. I'll have to look for that.
Very high praise.
Well, I feel if you like Steely Dan, you will like my next album, definitely, and probably you already do. But for my number 3, I am going to go with Joe Jackson's Night and Day. Again, stylistically, you know, all over the map. And also Joe Jackson, much like Elvis Costello, evolved. He started out kind of very much sort of post-punk, new wave, elements of ska with his third album, and then he just kind of.
Someone wants to say hello. I'm sorry, she's yelling at me. Good, Mo. Do you like Joe Jackson? No, yeah.
I think that was a yes.
All right.
But this album's got the hits, Breaking Us in Two and Stepping Out. But you've got Cancer, which is about cancer, and yet it is. You know, I don't know. I mean, you could really rumba to
yeah.
Sort of odd to say, but it's really, there's so many cool rhythms on here. You know, Slow Song is like a torch song ballad. You know, TVA's Chinatown. I think it's almost like a concept album, but you know, this cover almost reminds me of Max Headroom, or not Max Headroom, but who's that McDonald's character from the 80s where that had like the moon-shaped head?
Oh, Mac Tonight.
Yeah, Mac Tonight. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the whole Mac Tonight
yeah, a little bit
campaign on here for some reason, but very cool. I mean, if you know, people who love Joe Jackson, you know, love him for the very reason that, you know, he got into, you know, jazz and soul and big band music and new wave, and he really you know, covered almost every single genre in his career, which is still going on. But I was gonna almost pick Body and Soul because I love that album too, but I ended up going with this one. It just sounded a little more truer to Sophistipop than that one did.
Absolutely. All right, my number 2. This is the last kind of maybe deeper cut one. God, I love this for the same reasons I love that Deacon Blue record, and it weirdly enough has also a band name connection. But this is a group called the Blue Nile, and this is a Walk Across the Rooftops. I think for whatever reason, it seems like most people seem to give accolades to their next album called Hats, which I believe is 89 or 90. Maybe this band has 4 records spread across like 2 decades. They take their time in between albums, but it's very it seems very purposeful, and it seems very worth it, because each one, man, again, it's just a really powerful, soulful, dark, moody pop record. Paul Buchanan, main guy behind this band. The title track is one of the singles off of here. Tinseltown in the Rain is one of the singles, and I believe Stay is maybe the third one. But yeah, this is another record where it's like I don't play it often. I have to be in a very particular mood to hear it, because it is one of the most lush albums I've ever heard, and I don't like to I don't want it to lose that magic for me. So it's not spun a ton, but when it is exactly what I need to hear. And this is another, tight 7-track record, 38, 39 minutes, whatever it is, really taking their time, really creating this universe. And yeah, like I said, the 3 records after this are also great. But this is really the hit for me. Not the easiest record in the world to find, so don't expect to, see it in your local shop tomorrow, but it is streamable. I highly recommend any fans of 80s pop who have not heard this album to go seek it out. And the Blue Nile, A Walk Across the Rooftops, is a very powerful record for me, my number 2 spot.
Very cool. Well, my number 2, I am going to get more into kind of the synth pop realm here with my next pick. I'm going to go with Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark and their album Crush. I always love the album cover artwork too. I feel like this is some sort of gallery painting that they had themselves painted into, because I feel like I've seen this painting hanging places before. It's just got a very classic feel to it, but I'm here to talk about the artwork. The music on here is phenomenal. You got So in Love and Secret, which were very much new wave-ish, but then you've got Block, 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 Women 3, which is kind of a rollicking type of rhythm, and just so many interesting elements to OMD sound, like even the song Crush. That are you familiar with the song at all?
Yeah, I saw OMD maybe, gosh, 6-ish, 7 years ago, maybe at this point. And it was one of those bands where I was kind of familiar with them. And, but that's a band, you don't know how many songs you know by them until you hear them all at once. Like if you put on the best of comp, like you'll know every single track from a soundtrack or from, 80s pop radio. Like they just, for every reason, like no one actually knows their name, but they have some mega singles, Crush among them.
Yeah, If You Leave, which I believe was from the Pretty in Pink soundtrack, is the one that most people would recognize if you've seen that film, or you might have just heard it on the radio. But they sound like no other band on the radio. That's why it's so hard to come up with words to describe what does OMD sound like. I mean, yeah, they sound a little bit like synth pop. If you like Depeche Mode, you'll like OMD. If you like New Order or some of those bands that are, similar, like, or, around that time, Simple Minds a little bit, you will definitely like OMD. But they just have so many interesting sound elements. Like the beginning of that song, Crush, it's some kind of sample that they use, but it's, I can't even make the sound with my voice. It's just so interesting. And they build that into the rhythm. And then there's some horns that come in there and just the weirdest sounds. And then you've got the rain. It's all about, the rain, and it's so dark and spot.
Yeah.
88 Seconds in Greensboro. And then the Native Daughters of the Golden West almost sounds like ELO, something ELO, would have put on one of their albums. And then, Hold You is so like Blue Eyed Soul, that's really Sophistipop at its core. But this is a fantastic album. I believe this was released in 1985. but it is absolutely, if you want a place to start, you want to check OMD out, I would encourage you to start with that record.
My number one, kind of like I really struggled with whether or not I was going to include this in the list, because I know if I did, it would be number one. And again, I didn't want to almost demote it, for lack of a better term, to just one genre. But when I think about, kind of what this is, what this sound of music is, it is absolutely this record. It is absolutely this period of this artist's work. And I won't spend a ton explaining it, but it is Joe Jackson's Night and Day. Yeah, this record has been in my life a very, very, very long time. Yeah, it's absolutely a concept record about New York. The first side of this record, every track leads into the other one. It's kind of Sgt. Pepper style. And there's actually a version I'm dying to find. There was a promotional version of this album sent out to record stores that actually does not have the first side leading into each other. It has all the tracks separately. It's kind of this like weird radio promo thing. And I would love to have it just, to have different versions, because this is one of my favorite albums of all time. I consider Joe Jackson to be my favorite solo artist of all time. And yeah, could have picked a myriad of records. I mean, his run of this Body and Soul, Big World, is just a unbelievable run of records. And yeah, another guy like we've said is, has genre hopped quite a bit. He goes, just to kind of punky new wave records, into a ska record, into a big band record, into this, into, and then further on and further on. But oh my God, yeah, every song on this record is just incredible. I've seen Joe 3 times. Every show is amazing. And yeah, this music means a large lot to me. And yeah, I am getting to the point where I need to pick up some of the harder to find records by him, because I have this internal fear that, who knows when they could become even harder to find. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's still, he's put out, again, another guy, he's put out 2 really phenomenal records in the last 10 years, and is just still sharp as a tack when it comes to songwriting and performance. And yeah, is absolutely without a doubt, my favorite Sophistipop record.
Yeah, well, mine was pretty close to your ranking. So I think we both appreciate, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this know who Joe Jackson is, and also love his music. My number one, again, it's an album from, I believe it was released in 1985, and yet I listened to this multiple times in a given year. I keep going back to this record because it is so phenomenal, and it might have been what was going on in my life at the time. And this album got me through a pretty difficult period. And it is Tears for Fears, Songs from the Big Chair. Sounds nothing like their first record, The Hurting. Granted, The Hurting was 3 years released before this album, but their sound matured so much. I mean, Shout is a little bit kind of closer to kind of the new wave pop of their first album. And then you get to The Working Hour, where it just opens with this saxophone solo and what sounds like a marimba. And it's just this soft, gentle. And then you get into the rhythm, and it's like, God damn, this is a great record. And then you've got the hit that most people recognize, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, and then Mother's Talk, side 2, I Believe, Broken, which, is kind of electronic synth pop a little bit. And then one of my favorite songs of all time, Head Over Heels.
I do.
Gorgeous song, love that one. And then Into Listen, which is kind of another just gentle, atmospheric song. This is a dark record in places, but it is some of the most gorgeous pop, most inventive melodies. Just a great record. I can't say enough about it, but I think the world of Tears for Fears.
Yeah, that's a great number one pick. That's one I would love to have on vinyl. All three of those first three records are really, really incredible. This is something I hadn't realized until years ago, but I think like, you know, our mutual friend JC Profi, I think, you know, guys who are watching this video that have made it to the end, do yourselves a favor. Go listen to Broken by Tears for Fears, then listen to Schism by Tool. That bass riff might sound a little familiar. It's really weird.
Yeah, well, very cool. That's why, you know, I think a lot of artists stole, or at least I think a lot of artists had the freedom to expand their sound a little bit, or try new things. You know, don't be afraid to, you know, change up your formula. You know, Tears for Fears first record, don't get me wrong, that was great. The Hurting is a fantastic pop record, but this one is just so much more mature, so much more rewarding for my money. And then Sowing the Seeds of Love, you know, the Seeds of Love, which was their third album. Sowing the Seeds of Love has got kind of almost like a psychedelic Beatles feel to it. So
Yeah.
even moved into a different direction with their third record. But yeah.
And that's a great number one pick. Is absolutely genre defining for this style. And we're living in a really great era of you know, Steven Wilson remixing and remastering those Tears for Fears records, and they are awesome.
Well, I feel XTC. I mean, when we're talking a couple years later, King for a Day ripped off Everybody Wants to Rule the World, the whole you know, rhythm there. So I mean, that Tears for Fears can, you know, influence bands not only in the rest of the 80s, but apparently they influenced Tool also. So that is very
I can't confirm Maynard jocked it, but it does sound pretty familiar.
Yeah. All right, well, those are our picks, and I would love to know what your picks are. If you want to include them in the comment section. I know as soon as I shut this video off, I'm going to be checking out Logan's picks, because he makes them sound so awesome, and I got to add them to my playlist. But and I'm going to be looking for those when I go out record shopping also. And I know I'm not going to have to pay a lot, which is the great thing, because these records tend to be unfairly discounted when you go out to record stores, but they are phenomenal. What a fun topic. And, you know, I'm sure you'll see Logan and I doing some other episodes together in the future. But as always, thank you for watching. Thank you, Logan, for putting up with my internet issues and hanging in there.
Well, thanks for putting up with my schedule issues.
No problem. All right, everybody, take care.